Yeah, hey guys, welcome back. Today I want to show you how to build this handy little device here. So in my last video I showed you how you can revoice pickups by adding capacitors in parallel. So what that does is shift that resonant peak, and it's quite different from using a tone control, which really just diminishes that resonant peak. So this is the Green Gizmo that I was using in that video, and it is a pickup revoicer that I built for the workshop so I can really quickly revoice pickups and work out what capacitors I need to install inside the guitar. So it's really simple to use. You just plug in your guitar out to your amp, and you've got a little bypass switch here you can turn on and off and select between some different capacitor values, and it makes it really easy to quickly work out what you need to install inside the guitar and solder in there so you can have it permanently revoiced. So I got a lot of comments in that last video about how to build one of these. Is there a schematic available? Now I have these units available and a schematic on our website. The link is down in the description, but I really urge you to have a crack at building one of these. You'll get a lot of really cool skills, and you know, nothing impresses the ladies like high-level soldering skills. Okay, before we crack into this build, if you like this video and you would like to say thank you in any way, please subscribe or hit the like button. Even use that weird share button that no one uses down the bottom, because if these videos get out to more people, that would be just awesome. I'd love to be able to spread this sort of information to more of you folks out there to help you out in different ways. So if you can do that, that would be great. Here's the main things you're going to need. A enclosure. So this is like a Hammond 1590B size. Any sort of 1590B or bigger will work. It does, and you can get all this stuff from like places like mouser.com. I mean, there's loads of different places that sell all this sort of stuff, JCar or Radio Shack or wherever you live in the world. The next thing is a couple of jacks. I've got these Switchcraft ones which I really like, so I'll be using those. And then just a little switch, a little mini sort of, I've got a double pole, double throw, so it's just a two-way switch there. You can use a single pole, single throw switch. We don't actually need the extra pole. I've just got lots of these in stock from the pedals that I built. A big gnarly knob. It looks cool because it's big. And this is probably the main part here. So this is a single pole 12 throw switch. So this is the thing that clicks around. If I bring it up a bit closer here so you can see, it's got all these little lugs on the back, and it sort of clicks around. This is the thing that clicks between all your different capacitor selections. Now you don't need a 12 throw one. You could have a 10 throw, an 8 throw, but 12 just gives you more options, which is, and I find the steps from 1 to 12 are actually really even. So that's basically the parts. Obviously wire, there's solder, but that's pretty much it. You need a few tools to do the drilling and soldering, all that sort of stuff. But anyway, let's get into it. Let's start drilling the enclosure. Right, so first we've got to just measure up where the holes are going to go. I like to shove a bit of tape down the center and then just draw like a center line, just sort of measure across obviously the width of the pedal, and then draw a center line down, so it makes it just a lot easier to mark things up. And I always like to just triple check where they're going to go. So it's going to go pretty much there, and then the little switch towards where the jacks are, and it looks about right. That looks cool. This is a great little trick actually. If you're putting jacks in the end, you measure 10 mil from these bits of casting here, and just mark the top on each side, and then get like a small square and set the square to 12 millimeters, and it gives you like a perfect 12 millimeters down from the edge every time, especially if you've got holes along the sides, wherever. You just line it up to your little marks that you've already made along the edge here. Anyway, then you just want to dot punch them. So I've got an automatic dot punch. You just push down, there we go, and that just creates a little dimple in there for when you're drilling, so your drills don't like slip. Alright, so I've drilled out all my pilot holes to 3 millimeters. Now a really good tip here is to always start with your smallest hole size first. So I've got a 5 millimeter for the switch, for the little toggle switch. It just means that if you muck up a hole, you can always just drill it out to the larger size later. So anyway, let's do it. Okay, now it's time to solder on the caps. So you're going to be soldering them onto these outer lugs here. There's going to be 12 caps, obviously. Now the sequence of caps I use is very particular, and it's something that it took me quite a long time, or quite a lot of experimentation to get just right. So it gradually moved that resonant peak how I wanted it to. Now, if you want to know what caps I used, the schematic is available on our website. It's down in the description below. It's only a couple of bucks and it's really just a koha to support this channel. So that would be great if you wanted that. Otherwise, you can absolutely experiment. Anyway, let's solder these on. So I'm just going to go through and do that now. Nice, so that's looking good. All the caps are on there. So now we've got to solder all these free legs to each other, so it sort of creates a circle around. So that's what we will do now. Kind of looks like this, like a kind of like a carousel or whatever. And now we just have to solder one wire to this center lug. Then we'll start building it into the enclosure. All right, so the last step is just getting everything in the enclosure. So I've mounted everything in there. Now I'll just run through this wiring. I didn't do the wiring on camera because it's kind of awkward to work around a camera and I just wanted it to look nice and neat. So what we do is we wire the ground lugs of the two jacks together, and the hot lugs, the tip, also gets wired together as well. So they just literally wired directly in series with each other, input and output jack. So it doesn't actually matter which way around you plug them. And then from one of the ground lugs, you wire it to the ring here of the capacitors, or the capacitor ring. Then your wire from the center of the rotary switch gets wired to one of the center lugs of the little on and off switch, and then one of the other lugs gets wired to one of the hot lugs of the input and output jacks. So what that's doing is that it's just switching this ring of capacitors into the circuit with your signal when you turn that little switch on. So what I try to do is I try to make it so when the switch is pointing towards the knob, let me just flip this over for a second. When the switch is pointing towards the knob, that's when this is active, and you can change or flick between the different capacitors that are available. And when your switch points towards the jacks here, that's when you're in bypass. So it's just an easy way to remember, because this is a completely passive unit and there's no LEDs or anything like that, and no power going into it. So anyway, that is how it's built. So that's it done. So let's test it. Right, so it's time to test this out. I've got it plugged into my guitar with a fairly short cable. The shorter, the better for your cable going from the guitar to the unit, and then just use your normal cable to your amp from there. So it's just because you want the lowest amount of cable capacitance to the unit to get the most accurate sort of voicings, I suppose. Now at the moment it's off, so I've got it switched up towards the jack, so it's bypassed, and then I can switch it towards the knob here and start to move it around. Every time you move it, especially the first 4 or 5 selections are quite subtle, but they definitely feel different. This is the neck humbucker on this, by the way. So it works on humbuckers, single coils, any pickups really, just not active pickups, unless you can get to the pickup itself, you know, before it hits that active circuitry. Anyway, so if we can go into a bit more of an extreme setting. Cool, so you can really hear that it's shifting that resonant peak. It's just not rolling back the tone like a tone control does. You don't end up losing the power of the pickup. When you roll the tone, you can definitely feel the pickup sort of weakening and getting darker, obviously, and it's nice for tweaking. But when I use this, even on the darkest setting, it still sounds that's not a sound I'd ever use, but you can still feel the power in the pickup. It's also the way it feels. And if I go to the bridge, same sort of deal. This is bypassed, and I turn it on. That's the very minimum setting. So I can notice a very slight change. It's like an absolute tweak to the top end. And if I click it around a few more, so I'm just clicking this wheel around. Go to a more extreme setting like in that last video. This actually sounds pretty cool. How it kind of works is that Once you've got it all plugged in like this and you find a selection you like, just say it's the 5th selection around, or the 5th spot on the switch that you think sounds marvelous, then what you can do is in the manual it'll tell you the capacitor values for that selection. One thing I do is I write all over this thing. So I've got a Sharpie and I've written little notes for different guitars. I write some of the values on the back, like a cheat sheet on the back. So that's how I use it. It's a tool for me. It's a workshop tool that I use. It helps me make people's guitars more how they want them to sound. That's really what it's about. It's about what you hear in your own ears, not what someone else thinks. So that's it, guys. That's the Green Gizmo Pickup Re-Voicer. That's what I was using in that last video. Have a crack at building this. I hope you really enjoyed this video. I have got some really cool videos coming up. In one of the next videos, you'll see why I've got a humbucker routed into the back of this one. That's going to be a really fun video to do. So please subscribe and we'll catch you next time.